Hello, welcome to another episode of Roots and Readers. My name is Jennifer and I work at the Hampton Park Library. Today we're going to talk about soaks, sprouts, and microgreens. So these three things are three completely different stages of plant development. Each stage will add a punch of nutrients to your winter diet, and they're pretty easy to grow inside over the winter when it's tough to keep a garden growing outside. So you may be wondering what the difference is between soaks, sprouts, and microgreens. Soaks are seeds that have been soaked for a couple of hours in order to start the germination process. There are chemicals in the seed that keep it from germinating. Those chemicals are neutralized when the seed soaks and absorbs water. Those chemicals are neutralized and it starts the amino acids and the proteins, the accessibility of those nutrients for the seed to use to start the germination process. The availability of those chemicals actually make it easier for you to digest, and you will actually gain more benefits and end up digesting and absorbing more nutrients from a soaked seed than you would from a regular cooked seed or a seed or grain that was not soaked. So to soak seeds, all you need to do is add seeds to a container of water, let it sit for an hour or two. Once you see that the seed has started to swell up and is slightly larger than it was before, then you know that the seed is ready to eat. Sprouts are seeds that are about 1 to 2 days along in the germination process. They can consist of just the seed and a primary root, or it can be the seed, a primary root, and a stem that has started with maybe the first couple of leaves. What you do is you take your seeds or grains and you're going to you can put them in a mesh bag, you can put them in a container. The reason people use mesh bags is because you have to rinse them every 12 hours because the moist, warm conditions that seeds love to sprout are also conditions that bacteria thrive in. So you don't want to make yourself sick by ingesting too much bacteria. So you'll need to take your sprouts and you'll need to rinse them every 12 hours in order to rinse away any bacteria that's started to grow. As you can tell, seeds and grains are small. So if you just put them in a container of water and you try to dump the water off and rinse them, you might end up losing some of them. So a fine mesh bag is a favorite for people who enjoy eating sprouts because you can just run the water through it, make sure it's well drained, and then just put it aside. And it's much easier to go ahead and keep the sprouts rinsed that way. There are other containers with a tray. You can run water over it and the water strips down through the tray. There's a lot of different setups out there. Just find what works best for you. Because of the possible bacterial growth, sprouts are actually not recommended by the government anymore, and they're definitely not recommended for children, pregnant women, or people with compromised immune systems. It's just a safety thing. Soaked seeds or microgreens anywhere else in that process is actually safer for you to eat. That leads us into microgreens. Microgreens are seeds that have sprouted, but they've also grown their first set of true leaves. So the first leaves that come out when you have a sprout, those are not the first set of true leaves. You'll notice that most of those leaves are all rounded and look very similar. And then the second set of leaves that come out on seeds or grains that have sprouted look different. Those are the true leaves that reflect the actual future look of the leaves that this plant is going to produce later on in life. So microgreens are actually sprouts that have continued to grow and have the second set of leaves, that first set of true leaves. Microgreens are typically planted in soil because they are going to need to continue to grow for more than 1 to 2 days. Microgreens are typically somewhere between 1 week to 2 weeks old, and it's going to need soil and nutrients in order to grow that second set of leaves and continue thriving. So most of the time, microgreens are planted in soil, and when you harvest them, you don't eat the seed and the root, you clip them off, and you eat the stem and the leaves of it. That's one reason it's safer, after you rinse them off, that's one reason it's safer to eat microgreens than it is to eat sprouts. So a lot of people have started eating microgreens, just letting them grow a little bit longer instead of sprouts and taking the chance with bacteria and possible illness with that. Microgreen leaves also typically have a more intense flavor and have more nutrients packed into a smaller amount than in their larger, more fully developed and full-grown leaves. So if you are wanting to get that extra burst of nutrition, you can add microgreens to the salad you're already eating or to any prepared foods. You can eat them raw, you can eat them cooked. They still have a great amount of nutrition and flavor just packed into a small package. People use them as garnishes, flavorings. They're really a great addition to any foods, and they're very easy to grow. I wanted to show you how easy it is to grow microgreens. What I did was I took the lid to the seed starts that I used earlier in the year to start my seeds for the fall garden. I just took the lid that I had left over. I threw dirt in it, some potting soil and some good dirt in there. And then I took string that I had and I just sectioned off different areas. I stretched it across. I used a piece of tape because I wanted to go ahead and try different varieties, and I wanted to keep them separate and label them so I'd know what they were. But I stretched string across and I just taped it to each side and made myself 6 different areas to try some seeds in. So here on the left, you'll see I've labeled radish, then spinach, then I've got mustard seeds, lettuce seeds, and then some cauliflower and broccoli on the end. I put the other lid that I had from the other seed starting pot over the top after I sprayed the seeds. And then I just let it sit for a couple of days until I saw the first sprouts come up. And I took the lid off, and I've just continued to keep it damp so that they can grow. So I started these seeds almost 2 weeks ago. I've had them with a grow light on them, and I wanted to show you the difference here. These spinach, so far, these are still considered sprouts. These are the first leaves that have come up. You'll see that there's not a second set of leaves in there. You can still see some of the seed holes here on the tips of them. The spinach took a little while to sprout, so it's not as far along. The radish did sprout first, and as you can see here, there is a second set of leaves already growing. So this is considered a microgreen because it's got its first set of true leaves right here. I can let it grow just a little bit more. This one right here, you see how this leaf looks different? This is a true leaf versus the seed leaf right here. So the radish are actually ready to be clipped and harvested in the next couple of days as microgreens. Again, the spinach is still in a sprout condition because it does not have its first set of true leaves out. The mustard, again, still has the first set of true leaves. The first set of seed leaves, but you can see right here, I've got some true leaves coming out. So probably in a few more days, my lettuce, my mustard will be ready to harvest as microgreens. On the lettuce, Some of the lettuce has a few true leaves coming out. Those should be ready probably in another week. I can use the lettuce microgreens. The cauliflower took a little longer to sprout than some of the others, so I'm still in the sprout stage. I don't have my true leaves really coming out yet. And then on the broccoli, I have a few true leaves just starting to come out, as you can see right here. So I'm hoping that these would be ready to harvest as microgreens in another few days as well. And all I will end up doing is taking a pair of clippers or garden shears that have been sanitized, clipping it off right here, gathering the greens, rinsing them, and then just tossing them on a salad. They're going to be very flavorful and pack a lot of nutrients in a small amount. One last very important piece of advice. Please research which seeds and grains you decide to soak and eat as a soak, a sprout, or a microgreen. Not all seeds and grains are safe to eat in each stage. As an example, sorghum is safe to eat in the grain or seed stage or in the plant stage. However, if you soak sorghum seeds, they start to produce and release cyanide. If you eat enough sorghum soaks or sprouts, because with the sprout you're eating that seed as well, you could possibly ingest a toxic dose. So please do your research before you just grab a handful of seeds or grains and soak them or sprout them and decide that that's going to be a great thing to eat. So I learned a lot of this information about soaks, sprouts, and microgreens from books that we have here in the library. Some of the ones that gave me the most information: Sprouted, Seeds, Grains, and Beans. This book talks about the best seeds to sprout. It also gives you soak and sprout guide so that you can see how long before specific seeds should germinate, how long to soak them, etc. There is a lot of good information, as well as some recipes in here you can use your microgreens in. Another book, The Speedy Vegetable Garden, is a great resource. In the very beginning, it'll tell you if you did want to do sprouts. It talks about the sprouting bag and the sprouting tray that I was mentioning that make it easier to rinse them and keep them safer. Again, there's a lot of great information in here. When it talks about Speedy Vegetable Garden, it's talking about eating them as sprouts or microgreens or some vegetables that grow very, very quickly that don't take a lot of time in order to enjoy. The last book I wanted to show you, Microgreens, How to Grow Nature's Own Superfood, talks a lot about the benefits of microgreens. It talks about problem solving if your seeds and your sprouts are getting stuck or if you start to notice mold, kind of some things to do because you are going to plant these seeds very, very densely. You're not going to go by the seed planting instructions that tell you to plant one seed or two seeds every 3 or 4 inches. You're going to take a handful of seeds and you're going to go ahead and just scatter them in the dirt when you grow them, if you're going to be growing microgreens, because there's no reason to have to thin them. They're not going to get overcrowded because you're going to eat them before you get to that point. So also in here, it tells you about specific seeds and specific plants. This is the broccoli. It's going to tell you when to expect the first set of true leaves, what kind of nutrients that broccoli sprouts will add to your diet, and it just has a lot of information about your specific seeds and grains and sprouts. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us here at Forsyth County Public Library, because at Forsyth County Public Library, we know books.